Hello, welcome to this video where we thought that we would talk a little bit about the decision-making process that we went through as we are trying to wrap our heads around what happens in the transition to adulthood. Many of you may have come across that phrase as the boys they're now 16, they're rising up to 18, and at 18 then legally they are adults and certain things change. Parental responsibility evaporates, which is a strange thing to get your head around as parents, because we will still feel responsible, obviously, for our boys. But there's a lot that we've had to wrap our heads around, and a lot that we've had to talk about.
And we are still navigating this journey.
We're not there yet.
With big L plates. But yeah, we've been encouraged by friends to talk about that and hope, and I guess if it helps anyone, because no one gives you a roadmap or a textbook of how to get through this journey. You just feel like you blunder around, really, trying to make decisions. So
yeah, there are sources of information out there, and to be fair to the council has put on some information events which are really, really useful.
Before COVID.
Yes, that's true. Pre-COVID, and we attended one of those, and it was
that was good.
It was eye-opening. Yeah,
but
for sure.
Also, I think we felt quite bewildered. Because it's a new world and there's all this terminology that you've not heard before,
and the fact that we have two boys with quite different needs and they're going in different directions in terms of their pathways through this transitional period. For Morgan, it's all kind of health focused, and for James, it's all very much social services and community focused. So quite different tracks for them both.
So I made a few little notes just to help me stop waffling.
Carry on.
But the first thing that we've done is we've talked ever such a lot about such a lot of things.
Does it show?
Talk to each other a lot, haven't we? We were often taking lunchtime walks because you've been working remotely, we just talked about everything and thinking about the decisions, thinking about our own feelings, thinking about the boys' needs, taking them as individuals, putting them together. So that's been one thing. And then not just talking to each other, but also talking to particular people that we thought would support and help us and just be sounding boards.
Thank you. You know who you are.
So do you want to say a bit about the kinds of people we spoke to? And
so it's quite useful. I mean, in all areas of life, like if you're running a business or you're running a church or any group or organisation, it's quite useful to have people that aren't completely like-minded, who see things that you don't see, that have a different perspective. And so one of them, I'll just mention specifically by name, my really good friend Dave Sherwood, who looks at life almost differently.
If you start naming one, then that's not fair.
I know it's not. But I'll just say him because he's a really good example, and we go way, way, way back. This is not to deny anybody else that's been involved, but he just looks at things completely differently to me and almost anyone, and it's just been really useful to bounce things.
Sorry,
off
I'm just
all
doing
of
medicines
people.
in the background for Mo here.
This is our evening routine, by the way. James is in bed about 7:30, and then Morgan's routine goes on to about 9 o'clock as we do medicines and so on. Different friends and people that we respect.
Well, you've named one, so I feel I should name one now. So, and we had a Zoom call with some friends of mine from Derby, Rachel and Trevor, and they have been in a caring situation for, well, it's over 30 years, isn't it? And they just have a wealth of experience. They've travelled the road, although their circumstances are different to ours. It's really, really helpful to talk to people who've kind of worn the badge for longer. And as they said, care has, as any carer will know, has a cumulative effect on you. And you'd get tired and you need breaks, and
not to feel guilty about those things.
And you end up getting older, and then you can't kind of bounce back from things in the same way that you could when you were younger. And I think that's one of the difficulties, that you also have to accept that you're not always going to be there for your young person, or that your health might change, you never know what the future holds. So it was really helpful to talk to them, wasn't it? And there were other people, we spoke to other parents who were a little bit ahead of us in the journey. So my number one point is talking. I just think for us, talking has been so helpful as we've got our heads around the decision, and it's also been quite difficult and very emotional in places, and there were points where we had to stop talking and just leave things, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I feel kind of painfully aware that there are some parents in our situation who are coping alone, single parents, and not having a partner in life to talk and dialogue this through must be incredibly difficult. I can't imagine. Sharon and I also think differently from each other, so it's quite useful to go through these things together.
That's a really good point. We're really lucky. We do know that. We are very really blessed. Lucky.
Yeah. So if you're in that situation, it would be really helpful to find people that you can talk to, that you trust, but also that are not going to necessarily try and impose views on you. Because one of the kind of conversations that we find very difficult is when people say, "Oh yeah, I know just how you feel." I mean, if you've heard that, you're probably cringing inside, because even our friends Trevor and Rachel wouldn't presume to say that, because they know that their experience is different from ours. I think they actually do really understand a lot of how we feel, but because they've been through it, and probably because they've faced people saying that to them, they wouldn't say it anyway. So choose the people you talk to carefully, be wise about it, but definitely talk about it.
And then of course professionals. I mean, we've got some excellent professionals around us, and that's been another side of the dialogue.
Godsend.
So and then this wouldn't be the case for everyone, but I found it really helpful to write down some of my key thoughts and just make lists. So I'm just going to articulate some of my lists and how that helped with thinking about just Morgan specifically. So the first column out of two columns I wrote was called "What is hard?" What is hard about life for Morgan? I had 3 points on that. There probably are more, but these were just the big things. So one, the biggest thing, or nearly the biggest thing, 1 and 2 are a bit tied, is his inability to travel. He can't travel very far. And this led us to discuss a whole load of things around this, because we did talk, didn't we, through if there was a facility provided locally, not really a nursing home, but say, like a therapy centre which had residential care, where there was a hydrotherapy pool and there was a light room and there was a music therapist, and all kinds of things came to him, and there was a social atmosphere, and everything that he loves was around him, and he didn't have to travel to it. Then that removed one of the biggest problems, which is his inability to travel. So what do I mean by that? I mean, quite often he has to have sedation in order to be able to cope with journeys. And you struggle, don't you, Mo, with tolerating sitting in a wheelchair.
Especially on a bumpy bus.
Yes, but also in the home. And that is because of his type and severity of cerebral palsy. So life's a real challenge for him physically, and you are incredible where you cope with things. Excuse you. And then the second thing, which again, I mean, you could call this number 1, is pain. Pain management for Morgan is a daily thing. Whole chunks of days and nights can be very, very painful. We won't say too much about that in front of him. He's very brave. We've had many a long day and night, and that's difficult. So those are the 2 things that make life hard. And then the third thing, which I've just add on what makes life hard, is that he can't say what his preferences are at 18. So, if Morgan could say to us,
"I want to be with you."
Yeah. Or I want to be, with Patrick, his friend, or I want to be, in a residential setting like this thing that I dreamt up where all the services are around him. And there isn't anything like that where we live at all. Once you get past school age,
If school would continue into adulthood, that would be quite good for Mo.
that would be fantastic. So that was my heading of just thinking, and then thinking about those things helped with talking about decisions.
That also increases our responsibility, doesn't it? The fact that he can't communicate. So
yes.
We're doing our best to interpret for him, but also to predict what's going to help him best. And this whole question of where he lives, which is very much part of the journey that we're on right now, has been one of the difficult nuts to crack.
Yes.
Morgan can't tell us where he.
We say that he can't say in words, I want this, but he's actually got lots of communication in other ways that we understand, and the care team around him understands. So,
like the way he melts when you give him a cuddle.
Yes, especially daddy cuddles. Hey, and then the second column I wrote was what makes his life better. So this is the really important antidote to talking about the hard things. And I made a list of 6 things here. There's probably more than this, Rob, but this is so these are not in any order at all. So number 1, his family. Now, I know that every young person with disabilities at the profound end is different, and not all would be able to show this. And we've always thought it's a wonderful thing for Morgan that he can show reactions, facial expressions, size, noises. In that video that you put together of Morgan, you've got the best of the best, really, haven't you, there, from several years of his best reactions that we happen to catch on film. There's lots that we miss. And it's actually some of the carers that have commented to me that if we've been out and we come back in and he's been at home with them, that your face lights up when he hears our voices, and that's such a lovely thing to hear. But that family is recognisable for him, and he can show that he's pleased to hear our voices and to see us. And then I guess the comfort that we know he gets when one of us is with him.
It's familiarity as well as the comfort, and we kind of go way back. The first time, the first time that you had a cuddle with Morgan.
Oh yeah.
He'd been in.
He was 7 days old, I think, then.
And he'd been in an incubator. He'd had multiple organ failure, and he was in a terrible situation. Okay. And then he came out for a cuddle with his mummy, and he just let out this big shuddering sigh, didn't he?
Yeah, it was amazing.
He knew he was with his mum.
And then when he went back in the incubator, he cried. And that was an absolute heart melter. I didn't know about any of the brain damage at that point. That was just,
So he does like being with his family. Don't you know?
Yes. So that was the first one. The second one for Mo, and again, there's lots of young people at this end of the disability spectrum that don't have this ability, and I'm really acutely aware of this, but at the moment, Morgan's 16 and he still can eat pureed food. He does have a pump, which he's on now, to maintain his nutrition, but he actually can tell the difference between school meals, sorry if anyone from Deepanks is listening, and home cooked food. And again, the carers tell us that he just loves his home cooked food. And he does show, doesn't he, certain meals he's like,
He quite likes his curries, which I'm very proud of.
They don't always like him, do they?
Yeah, true.
But you like flavour, don't you, Mo? So food was an important thing, and I think, so how does that affect decision making? Well, if he was in a residential setting, he wouldn't be having home cooked food. So,
or would he?
Well, maybe we could get some to him. Our home cooked food is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when we were making the decisions, and you're thinking about, okay, he shows us that he appreciates family when we come in, and he shows that he appreciates home cooked food. Well, those are 2 things that point to the right setting for me is with you guys.
Side note, one of the reasons of many reasons we need space is because we have a freezer drawer devoted to Morgan's meals.
Yes, he has a third of the freezer, and actually we could do with
even more.
And more freezer space, yeah. Because we couldn't go away for a few days at the moment because the drawer would just disappear.
Be gone. Because he likes to have at least 3 meals a day, if not more. He's a teenager.
Okay, so the third thing I wrote that I don't think you've put this in any of the stuff so far, Rob, but it's music. So live music. So Rob and I both play instruments, and you composed
I pretend to.
You composed that little iPad backing music, didn't you? But no, we do try and play some live music, and he loves it. He doesn't care if it's not very good. And one of the most amazing moments in his life for us was 2019 when we took him to Liverpool Philharmonic Hall, and we were nearly crying.
Squealed with delight.
We were nearly crying
Absolutely
with his reaction to...
Royal Liverpool Philharmonic, if anybody there is watching this, I just want to say again, that relaxed concert was amazing, and I really hope...
May the 26th,
really
2019.
You get to do more of those post-lockdown. It just was a delight.
Yeah, and he got completely hysterical, didn't he? He was just laughing so much, and the delight, and his eyes were bright and happy, and it's like the best antidote to a lot of the suffering that he has. So, again, if we could get live music in his life, I'm thinking...
Piano in his room.
Yeah, piano in his room, that's what I'd love. I'd love a room big enough. We had to part with our piano in 2010 because we had 2 new doorways created. We're in a 3-bed semi at the moment, and we had 2 new doorways created to make room for Morgan's wheelchair access, and we said goodbye to the piano.
Didn't have the space anymore.
And we do have a keyboard. It's not quite the same thing. So yeah, my dream would be to have a room big enough that could have a piano in, or at least that he could go through to a music room and people could play. Yeah, lovely. And then 4 was expertise of care. I won't explain that one too much, but what makes his life better? Expertise of care. So yeah, he's got a complex healthcare team around him. They are experts. Carers train for many months often before they kind of fly solo, as it were, and they learn all his little ways of communicating, understanding pain management for him, learning to feed him, and so on. And that's tied to the postcode, and that's one of the main reasons why we can't easily move to somewhere where housing is cheaper. I mean, we're very close in Chester to the Welsh border, and we could get a lot more for our money over the Welsh border, but we would lose specialist care. Some of those carers have been with us a long time. They know him so well, and that is actually, and this is no exaggeration, a life support mechanism around us as a family, as well as around him, and that's why we're actually both still here, standing. And then the 5th thing I wrote, what makes life better? Social. He's always liked an atmosphere, hasn't he? Actually, much more than James has. He's always liked busyness, things going on, comings and goings, right from when he was a baby. So again, that was one of the reasons why, if there was a setting where he could be with others, with the right facilities and everything on his doorstep, then that would be great. But that doesn't exist. So, and the last thing on my list was baths. And again, this wouldn't be true for everyone, but for Morgan, baths are incredibly therapeutic for the spastic cerebral palsy because his muscle tone is high, and he can fall asleep in a bath. Not always. Sometimes he can't tolerate his baths. Sometimes some of his conditions make it difficult to be in a bath and to lie down. But he's got this wonderful bath with the spa, with the bubbles.
You like your bath, don't you?
You like it, don't you, Mo? You love it with the bubbles. Oh, excuse you. I think I've talked too much, but anyway. So that's just some of what we've explored so far that's helped come to the conclusion of being in a property where we can accommodate him better We can have that extra freezer space. We can, I mean, the dream would be to be able to have a friend of his round, as we said on the website, that he can be with his family. I mean, we haven't even talked about James and how close they are as twins, but obviously that's in the mix as well.
So we've had to have a kind of systematic approach to reasoning about all of these decisions. And, you know, I'm very blessed to have a wife who's a former primary school teacher who is extremely organised and thinks in this way. And I know that that is not necessarily everybody's main strength, but certainly getting these things down on paper and looking at the good and the bad and doing that without, you know, flinching. Sometimes we just have to look at it and say, okay, what are the good things? What are the bad things?
Yeah.
And what levers do we have that we can pull? What buttons can we push that will just emphasize the good and reduce the negative in his life? And that's mainly, that's what caring for him is about, because we know that every day we are trying to improve his standard of living.
Absolutely.
As much as we can.
There's a lot we can't change for him, but we can do everything we can to make his quality of life better. You know, and that concert at Liverpool Philharmonic was one of those moments where I thought, wow, I'm so glad we did this.
Yes.
We were absolutely exhausted when we got home, weren't we?
Even though, unfortunately, it meant travelling to Liverpool, and that in itself wasn't ideal
that
for
was
Morgan.
Huge, because it was a long way for him.
Yeah.
You did very well, mate. Although I think you were sedated on the journey home. Weren't you? Yeah. But anyway.
So we should stop there because we have gone on for a bit, but I hope this is somewhat useful, and even if it's not useful, it gives you an insight into our strange minds and how we go about making the decisions that we're making for our beloved boys.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you want to keep following these videos, then like every YouTuber now on the planet says, like or subscribe and you'll get notifications. And that way you can keep abreast of what's going on with the fundraising. But this is not really about the fundraising. This is about us talking as parents of children with special needs and how we approach life. And if that's at all useful or interesting to you, keep watching for more. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.